She walked into that room carrying nothing but her dignity, her silence, and a past she never used for sympathy. The world saw her as ordinary, just another black woman trying to survive in spaces built to shut her out. But what they did know was this. She had already overcome storms that would have broken most people long before she ever stepped through those doors. Every step she took echoed with unheard battles, with struggles she faced alone in the quiet of the night, and with tears that nobody ever saw. People whispered, they judged her, they measured her worth through their own shallow standards, seeing only what they wanted to see. They mistook her confidence for arrogance, her calmness for weakness, and her presence for a lucky accident. But she wasn't there by chance. She was there because life had forged her in fire, shaped her with pain, and taught her to rise every single time someone tried to bury her. Her silence wasn't emptiness. It was a carefully guarded space where she planned, strategized, and remembered every lesson the world had tried to teach her the hard way. She knew her value, even when no one else did. And while they dismissed her, mocked her, and underestimated her, fate was quietly working on something much, much bigger. The universe was aligning the pieces for a grand reveal. Because the very people who looked down on her, who saw her as insignificant, were just moments away from watching the entire story flip on its head. They were about to witness a truth so powerful it would leave them completely stunned. A moment was coming when the black woman they had so casually belittled would finally reveal exactly who she really was. And in doing so, rewrite every assumption they ever had. The air in the room was thick with their judgments, but it was about to be shattered by her truth. They thought they were in control, that they held all the power. They were wrong. The woman who stood before them was not a victim of her circumstances. She was the architect of her own destiny. She had endured the fire, and now she was emerging from it, not burned, but refined. The world had tried to define her, but she was about to define herself. And her revelation wouldn't just change their perception of her. It would force them to confront their own biases, their own ignorance, and the colossal mistake they made in underestimating her power. The story they thought they knew was about to end, and her real story was just beginning. Thank you for watching. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. See you next time.
He looked at her with open disgust on their wedding night and told her he never wanted this marriage. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. Instead, she grabbed her pillow, walked straight past him, and headed to the guest room. He assumed she'd come running after him eventually. 3 months later, he was the one standing outside her door every night, begging for a chance. If you love stories where the rejected one becomes the treasure, you're going to want to hear this. This billionaire thought his arranged bride would cling to him for attention. He couldn't have been more wrong. Stay until the end to see exactly how she made him fall and fall hard. And if you're someone who knows your value, hit that subscribe button right now. Sienna Bennett never imagined her life would twist into this. At 27, she was a respected financial analyst in Atlanta, steadily building her career, one meticulous spreadsheet at a time. She had dreams, plans, and a future she was crafting with her own hands. Then her father's investment firm crumbled after a market crash. Overnight, every dream she had became irrelevant. Her family was drowning financially, bankruptcy threatening them from every direction. That's when Kyle Westbrook stepped into the picture. Kyle, 33, billionaire, CEO. And colder than a Chicago, January had everything a man could want: money, power, influence. But he had one overwhelming problem. His late father's will included a clause that would strip him of his entire empire if he wasn't married by his 35th birthday, and the deadline was just 2 months away. He had spent years dating models, socialites, and women who fit the billionaire image, but he had never committed to anyone. Now he was backed into a corner. The family saw a mutually beneficial opportunity. Kyle needed a wife immediately. Sienna's family needed rescuing from financial ruin. A marriage agreement would solve both issues. There was no love, no compatibility conversation, no romantic pretense. It was a business transaction signed, sealed, and executed like a corporate deal. Sienna's father sat her down in their living room with desperation in his eyes and asked her to save them. What could she say? This was her family. So she agreed, even though every instinct inside her whispered that this was wrong. The wedding took place on a cold, Tuesday morning inside a courthouse. No flowers. No celebration. No illusion that this was anything more than a necessity. Kyle arrived in a perfectly tailored suit, his jaw tense and his expression icy. During the ceremony, he barely glanced at Sienna. When the judge said they could kiss, Kyle gave her a dismissive peck on the cheek. No more affectionate than acknowledging a distant acquaintance. His family looked on, their expressions ranging from uninterested to openly disgusted. His mother gave Sienna a slow, judgmental once-over, the kind that didn't require a single word to convey her opinion. While they signed the paperwork afterward, Sienna overheard Kyle's younger brother whispering to a cousin. His words sliced into her like a blade. Just wait out a year, then dump her. That's the plan. Kyle didn't deny it, didn't correct him, didn't defend her. He simply adjusted his cufflinks like her existence was irrelevant. In that moment, Sienna understood everything she needed to know. To Kyle, she was nothing but a checked box, a temporary solution. The car ride to his penthouse was silent. His building was extravagantly luxurious, marble everywhere, floor-to-ceiling windows, and an air of cold perfection. Kyle led her through the massive space without speaking until they reached the master bedroom. It was magazine-level beautiful, but his voice was pure frost when he finally spoke. Here are the rules. We live separately. No affection. No expectations. This is business only. We'll show up together when necessary for family or business functions. Outside of that, stay out of my way. Sienna stood still, hands clasped, taking in each icy word. She'd prepared herself for this, but hearing it spoke aloud still hurt. Kyle turned to leave for his study, expecting the conversation to be over. But Sienna surprised him. She picked up her suitcase, walked right past the master bedroom, and headed straight to the guest room. It was smaller, simpler, but hers. Kyle stopped, frowning. What are you doing? You said separate lives, Sienna replied calmly, meeting his gaze for the first time all day. If distance is the goal, let's be thorough. This arrangement works better that way. He looked genuinely caught off guard. He had expected her to move into the master bedroom, to play the part of his wife even if the marriage was empty. But Sienna was done performing. If he wanted space, she'd give him more than he bargained for. She stepped into the guest room, closed the door, and turned the lock. The click echoed down the hallway. That first week set the tone. Sienna built a separate life inside the same penthouse. She woke at 5 a.m., went to the gym, and left the apartment before Kyle even woke up. She'd taken a job at a prestigious consulting firm and dedicated herself completely to the work. She came home late, ate alone, and read until she fell asleep. Kyle passed her occasionally in the kitchen or hallway. They exchanged nods like polite strangers sharing a rental. Kyle hadn't expected this. In his world, women pursued him, seeking his attention, craving his validation. But Sienna wanted nothing from him. That unfamiliar distance made him notice things about her. The way she always drank her coffee black, how kind she was to the housekeeper, how she left every morning dressed with confidence and purpose. She never tried to impress him, never tried to get his attention. By the second month, the shift was undeniable. Sienna wasn't just adapting, she was thriving. Her new job praised her regularly. Senior partners took notice. She attended exclusive networking events and returned home glowing with success. Kyle would hear her on the phone, really laughing at something a coworker said, and something sharp twisted in his chest. One evening, he heard her walk in around 10 p.m. Mid-conversation, her voice warm. No, that was hilarious. You seriously said that to the client? She laughed, an unguarded, beautiful sound he'd never heard directed at him. Okay, see you at the meeting tomorrow. And thanks for dinner, Preston. It was really nice. Kyle's fingers froze over his keyboard. Preston? Who the hell was Preston? He stepped out just in time to meet her in the hallway. Who was that? His tone came out harsher than he meant. Sienna regarded him calmly. A coworker. We had a dinner meeting. Not that it concerns you. She walked past him, and Kyle stood there, feeling stupid. She was right. They'd agreed on separate lives. He had no right to care. But he couldn't shake the image of her laughing for someone else. The breaking point came at a major investors' party. Kyle usually found these events dull until Sienna walked out of her room wearing a red dress that made his breath catch. Her hair flowed naturally, and she looked breathtaking. Not like his contractual wife. Like a woman, any man would lose his mind over. At the event, Kyle watched something he'd never seen: men drawn to her naturally. She was brilliant, discussing investment trends with more insight than most experts there. She was witty, confident, warm. People gravitated toward her. Kyle stood alone, watching his wife own the room. Feeling jealousy burn through him. Then Preston Hayes appeared, young, successful, charming. When he approached Sienna, her face lit up. They spoke for 20 minutes, and Kyle counted every painful second. Preston leaned in, made her laugh, looked at her like she was the center of the universe. Kyle snapped. He walked over, placed his hand on the small of her back, the first time he'd touched her since their wedding, and said sharply, "That's my wife." Preston blinked, then gave Kyle a look of pity. "Lucky you. Your wife is incredible." The emphasis was clear. Kyle didn't deserve her. The drive home was suffocating. Eventually, Kyle muttered, "You seem close with Preston." Sienna turned to him, her voice calm but ice cold. "He was kind. Something you'd know nothing about." She walked straight to her room when they got home and locked the door. Kyle stared at that closed door, feeling something inside him fracture. For the first time, he understood what he'd done: married an exceptional woman, then treated her like she was beneath him. Month 3 was agony for Kyle. He lay awake, knowing she was down the hall but emotionally worlds away. He tried accidentally crossing paths with her. He left his study door open when she walked by, hoping she'd talk. She didn't. He even asked the housekeeper about Sienna, burning pitying side glances. He tried suggesting dinner together for appearances. She declined. She had plans. He offered extra financial help for her father's company. She refused. "We had a deal. The marriage is enough." He tried complimenting her clumsily. "You look nice today." She'd nod and walk away. Each brush off made him more desperate. Then he saw her schedule. Lunch with Preston. That was it. He showed up at the restaurant, walked straight to their table, and sat down uninvited. Sienna's expression went from shock to livid. Preston awkwardly excused himself. Sienna stayed silent until they reached the car. Then she exploded. "You don't get to do this. You made it clear I meant nothing to you. You looked at me with disgust on our wedding night. You told me to stay out of your way, so I did. I built a whole life without you, a good one, and now you're upset because I'm not chasing you? Because I'm not begging for whatever scraps you decide to throw my way?" Her voice trembled, and Kyle saw tears in her eyes for the first time. "I don't need you." "Kyle, I never did." She got out of the car and went straight to her room. Kyle sat in the garage for an hour, replaying her words. She was right. He had been cruel and arrogant. Sienna was stronger and better than anyone he knew, and he'd been too blind to see it. That night, he stood outside her door for a long time before whispering, "See. Please, can we talk?" Silence. He slid down to the floor, leaning against her door, and finally began speaking. He confessed everything: his pride, his fear, how he'd been threatened by her independence, how he'd thought he was too good for her only to realize he wasn't good enough. "You didn't need me. And that terrified me. I can't sleep knowing you're so close but so far. I can't think about anything but how badly I messed this up. Silence stretched until he heard her voice, soft and cracked. You broke me that first night, Kyle. I know, he whispered. I can't undo it. But let me try to earn your trust. However long it takes. She didn't open the door. But the next morning, it wasn't luck. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. From that day on, Kyle showed up consistently. He made her coffee exactly the way she liked it and left it with small notes. I pay attention too. He asked about her work, listening deeply. At a family dinner, when his mother made a cutting remark about Sienna, Kyle shut her down immediately. Speak about my wife with respect or don't speak at all. His mother's shock was palpable. Kyle never stood up to her, but he did now. Sienna noticed. Though she remained guarded. Then Kyle did something that changed everything. He overheard Sienna telling a friend she dreamed of starting her own consulting firm someday. Kyle quietly made it real. He secured an office space, handled the licensing, and connected her with potential clients. Then he presented it to her entirely in her name. Sienna stared at the documents, tears gathering. Why? Why would you do this? Kyle met her eyes with sincerity. Because I finally see you. Really see you. And I'm in love with you, Sienna. Not because you're my wife on paper, but because you're the strongest, most extraordinary person I've ever known. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she shook her head. Love is more than a word, Kyle. It's consistency. It's effort. If you mean this, you have to prove it every day. And I'm staying in the guest room until I'm ready. Done, Kyle said instantly. I'll wait forever if I have to. No pressure. Just let me show you. And he did. For weeks, he supported her without overstepping. He celebrated her business launch, respected her boundaries, remembered her important dates, and never pushed her for affection. Very slowly, her walls began to lower. 3 months later, on a quiet Thursday night, Kyle was reading in the master bedroom when he heard footsteps. He looked up to see Sienna standing in the doorway, holding her pillow. She looked nervous, vulnerable. Can I come in? She whispered. Emotion hit Kyle hard. He nodded, unable to speak. She walked in, placed her pillow on the other side of the bed, and climbed in, keeping a little distance. You fell first, she said softly. With a small smile, Kyle reached over and took her hand. And harder. Good, she murmured, squeezing his hand. That night, for the first time since their wedding, they slept in the same room, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because somewhere along the way, a cold business arrangement had turned into something real. Kyle once thought she needed him. But in the end, he was the one who couldn't breathe without her. And now that he truly had her, he'd never take her for granted again. And that is how you make someone regret underestimating you, not through revenge, but by becoming so undeniable they can't look away. Sienna knew her worth and never lowered it. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of people who refuse to settle. And drop a comment below. Would you have forgiven Kyle or made him wait even longer? See you in the next one.